Okay. National Football League season is over. Super Bowl is over. Uh, it was a terrible game. Uh, Eagles win 40-22 over the Chiefs, thwarting the attempt at the three-peat. Um, and it was not even as close as 40-22. I believe it got to, what was it? It was 34-0, and then it was like, I think 40-6 or something like that. Um, really stunning. I was really shocked at what a demolition this was. I think everybody was. I mean, a lot of people thought the Eagles were going to win. My gut told me the Eagles were going to win, and I went against it just because Chiefs. No reason, no other reason. Um, but you know, the Eagles winning is not the Eagles. The fact that the Eagles won is not a surprise. The fact that it was this level of just ass kicking is a shocker. And I mean, it was obvious very early. I mean, the Chiefs were awful immediately. Um, you know, defense. They they didn't let Barkley do much, but they were giving up passes all over the place, letting Hurts run around. Um, but the story was what the Eagles defense did to the Chiefs, and the three times now, uh, or the last three times that the Chiefs have lost in the play any playoff game with Mahomes is it's the other defense just destroying the Chiefs, in the trenches. That Tampa Bay Super Bowl, Mahomes was running for his life the entire game. Um, and then, what the Bengals did in that AFC Championship game, and then this one tonight was the worst of all of them. From a Chiefs perspective, they didn't block at all the entire game. At least not until you late third quarter, kind of into the fourth. They kind of eased up, did a little prevent, but um, I mean, and they were throwing up throwing up stats or seeing them online. You know, you know, they weren't even blitzed. Or the Eagles weren't even having to blitz. They were rushing four, and they were just blowing through every play. Mahomes was running for his life. They couldn't run the ball. Mahomes was the leading rusher. Um, I noticed the leading rusher for both teams actually was the quarterback. I'm guessing that's the first time that's ever happened in a Super Bowl. Um, the Chiefs had no run game. Mahomes was just hounded constantly, and even when he was able to kind of get get something off, he was bad. I mean, this was a genuinely bad game. I actually thought, under the circumstances, he didn't play that bad in the Tampa Super Bowl, but this one he was bad, and you know any chance they had, you know, to stay in that game early, you know, he gave them no chance. I mean, he threw obviously the two interceptions, the pick six to the dude from Iowa. Um, you know, obviously, like, the pick six requires that was a pretty long pick six. I think it was like a 40 some yarder. That required a long return, but it was a very bad throw. It was a very wide open, a wide open pick, and then the second one he threw, like, from inside his own 10, late in the half, that just killed him. Because even that, like, the Mahomes reputation means that even when it's 10-0, you're like, well, it's, they've been in that position before. Even when it's 17-0, it's like, well, it's Mahomes has made big comebacks before, even in playoff games. But then when it really was 24-0, it's like, yeah, it's possible because you still had a half of football to go. But no, I mean, you just knew it's just, you know whatever the odds were at 24-0. I mean, it can be done, but it would have required such a massive reversal of how things were. Yeah, and so this, you know, like under the circumstances, had to have been the worst game of Mahomes' career. Um, and it's shocking. Like we knew the Eagles had a good defense, but to just massacre the Chiefs like this is just shocking. I think it shocked everybody and disappointed everybody because most people were not happy that this was the Super Bowl matchup. I don't think most people didn't want the Chiefs. Most people didn't even want the Eagles. But at least you think, okay, it's going to be at least a competitive game, maybe a photo finish, you know, something exciting will happen. But I mean, then the game's over at halftime. I mean we used to have bad Super Bowls all the time. We're getting a little more used to having pretty good Super Bowls most of the time. But this was just dreadful. I've seen every Super Bowl going back to Super Bowl 22, Washington versus Denver, and this was in the top or bottom five for me. And not just because I preferred the Chiefs to win. Um, you know, I have really nothing against any players on the Eagles. Um, it's the Eagles fans that I hate, and I'm sure they're tearing that city apart right now. Um, but I have nothing. I have nothing against the players. It's just you know I still am bitter about the Eagles. I would have been good with the Chiefs winning. You know, I was okay with them getting the three-peat, especially in front of Brady. It's like, of course, they're denied the three-peat that Brady never got in front of Brady. Doing another shitty job of broadcasting. I fucking hate that guy. Why are we still subjected to this fucking guy ruining the NFL for 20 years, and now we're still gonna be gaslit for how many more years that this guy's a good broadcaster? He's fucking terrible. He shouldn't even be allowed to broadcast. He's an owner of a team or a part owner of a team. But little tangent there. But yeah, I mean, just a terrible game. I mean, it got you still think, okay, maybe slightest bit of hope, 24-0 at the half, maybe something can happen in the second half, and then they get nothing out of that first drive in the third quarter, and then the Eagles went on a real long drive, got a field goal. It's like, just a nothing rest of the game. I mean, but it was just a disaster. Like late in the third quarter, they had 38 yards. They hadn't crossed the 50. They didn't cross the 50 until right before the end of the third quarter. It's the Chiefs. This isn't like, it's not like they were playing the Titans or something. This was the Chiefs, and they had these horrible offensive numbers late into the third quarter. I mean, it was just a bludgeoning, just absolutely, just completely non-competitive. And the Eagles had blown out Washington in the NFC Championship game, but this was an Eagles team that was like maybe one more good Matthew Stafford pass from losing at home to the Rams a few weeks ago. And here's the Chiefs playing them completely non-competitive until the game was completely decided. They got garbage time, and then they got a couple they get 3 touchdowns. But that was just to make it look a little better. Because if you didn't watch the game, you'd say, 40-22. Oh, that sounds like a lot of stuff. Maybe it was an okay game. No, it was absolutely. This was just a terrible game. So Eagles win, Chiefs lose. I'm sure there's going to be lots of discourse about because we can never just have a guy team win or lose. If there's always got to be the discourse. Now we'll have another round of discourse about Mahomes. I mean, he he can't ever be the GOAT now. Well, I mean, who the GOAT is a complete worthless discussion, and it's not entirely based on Super Bowl wins. Sorry. If it is, then how come Eli Manning didn't go into the Hall of Fame the other day? But you know, as far as because like he would have had the three-peat. He would have had his fourth title before he turned 30. You know, but he's still got a lot. I think I think people are going to just dump on Mahomes now, and maybe they're going to just do it because they're sick of seeing him all the time. But you know, you know, if he plays still another 10 years, he's going to probably win a couple more of these things. Um, you know, I mean, he's what 7 straight conference championship games. You know, and 5 Super Bowls and 3 wins. I mean, he's done just fine for himself. But again, it's same lesson as the Tampa game. If an offensive line is just getting absolutely destroyed, basically every snap, it can turn any quarterback into a mess. Now people are like, oh, how dare the Chiefs have been in this game? Buffalo would have given them a better game. Baltimore would have given them a better game. Well, maybe they would have, but they didn't get there. Like they gotta beat the Chiefs. Like you know, like maybe I think maybe some people underestimated the Eagles. I mean the Eagles ended up winning 18 games this year, counting the playoffs. That's you know, it's funny watching it. Like the Eagles had the same regular season record that the Vikings did. Vikings weren't going to be able to do that to somebody. Um, and actually, this game almost makes you kind of retroactively think, were we too harsh on Sam Darnold in those last 2 games? Because you know, I think those games were more fully the fault of Darnold than this game was the fault of Mahomes. And I'm not saying at all that Sam Darnold and Patrick Mahomes are equatable, but again, it's just another reminder that if an offensive line is horrible, it kind of doesn't matter what the quarterback is. They're gonna look bad. They're gonna get wrecked. Um, and if you can put together a defensive front that can just overwhelm an offensive line, and obviously the Eagles have a great offensive line too, which leads them to have that big running game. That's the other thing. It's like they're up 24-0, 27-0, and they had gotten almost nothing out of Barkley at that point. I think he only had 50 some yards for the game, and they killed him. That's why I was so pissed when they it's like, of course they gave the fucking MVP to Hurts, and Hurts ended up with some good numbers because he threw a couple touchdowns. Later on when it was kind of it was already decided. When the game was being decided, it was 100% a defensive masterclass. MVP should have been, I don't know, take a pick. Somebody off the defense should have won MVP, not the quarterback. But they're always, unless there's just no way they can do it, they're always going to give the MVP to the winning quarterback. It's so lazy. So Eagles now have 2 Super Bowls. At least we didn't, help get them their only one now. So that's the season. That's the NFL season. Interesting season, certainly from my team's perspective. It feels ages ago that they were even playing a playoff game, but like every Super Bowl, it's kind of like you look at the team that won, and you're like, how can we do that? And there's a lot of talk. Vikings, go get that offensive line beefed up. The guy from the Chiefs, Trey Smith, the guard, he's a guy who's being talked about a lot as the Vikings target. Now I don't know if the events of this game, diminish him. Usually, I mean, when when you have a demolition like that, it's never one guy. It's the whole unit. But that's you know that's what you got to do, man. You gotta beef up those trenches. It really, I mean, the like defensive interior and offensive line. They're not the sexy picks. They're not the sexy, attention grabbing roster additions, but boy, they make a difference when you get the really good ones. You know, um, and that's what you got to aspire to. Is to we want to get there. We want to build up that team like the Eagles, and of course, the Eagles have drafted probably the best of any team in the league for a while now. We have not, and that's another problem. Although, hey, Lewis Seen just won a Super Bowl ring. Um, I don't believe he was actually active for the game, but he was on the roster. He's got a Super Bowl ring. I believe Nick Muse has a Super Bowl ring now too. So, oh my God, just once, man. I just want one time for it to be the Vikings that do this, and we'll see. Head into the offseason and on to the future of the J.G. McCarthy era, and we'll see what happens there. But Eagles win the Super Bowl. Certainly, there were worse outcomes for these playoffs. I'd feel a lot worse if it was the Lions who just won or the Packers who just won. Didn't happen. So, but Eagles is like the and they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be good. They're going to be really good for a while. Washington's going to be really good for a while. The Rams might still be good for a while. It's going to be a lot of good NFC teams that we gotta get over if we ever want to get to a Super Bowl. But that's for the future, and it's late, and I should already probably be asleep. But so Eagles win the Super Bowl. Chiefs denied the three-peat in a very terrible football game that mostly just disappointed. Basically, unless you're an Eagles fan, everybody else was disappointed with this football game because either you were a Chiefs fan or you just wanted a good game and you didn't get what you wanted. So, them's the breaks.